Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Christensen. Welcome to Horror 101 with Dr. AC, and this is Scare-A-Thon 2023, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. We are on the back half of October now, so now is the time to make a donation. The link to donate is below in the description. And today we're going to be talking about The Witch in the Window, all the way back from 2018, which I didn't realize how long ago this film came out. But I'm going to bring in my awesome panel of guests, and we're going to chat about Witch in the Window, talking with S.A. Bradley of Hellbent for Horror, Gert Verbeeck, and Stephany Perez. And again, we were talking about Witch in the Window from Andy Mitton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are spanning time zones here. Gert is chasing daylight, or daylight's chasing him, and then over in Brussels. And then Scott is up with the sun over in the Bay Area. And Stephany and I are just sitting right comfortably in the middle in the Midwest. So I'm super excited to talk about Witch in the Window. I didn't realize that this was Andy Mitton, who had done Yellowbrickroad. And We Go On. I remember Yellowbrickroad being one of the most exciting first 45 minutes to an hour of a movie that I was like, I love this movie. I love this movie. I love this movie. And then I didn't love the movie as much once it got to the closing moments. But I was really excited to see We Go On. And I saw We Go On over on your side of the pond, Gert, at the, I think it was 2017 Biff. Scott, let's go ahead and start with you. Scott, where did you see Witch in the Window for the first time? How'd you hear about it?
Well, I had, it was during that time when I just needed to find something new to watch. And I was looking through the streaming services. And one of the reasons I had to find something to watch is that I have a lot of friends who watch a lot of horror films, and I was getting tired of everything that they had seen, I had seen, and vice versa. So I just started taking little chances, and I didn't really know, I didn't make the connection about Yellowbrickroad or We Go On. I had just seen this poster, and the poster looked kind of interesting. It looked super low budget. And so I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And sometimes it's the best way to come into a film, knowing nothing about it whatsoever, hearing a title. The title was like, that might be good. And watching this and seeing something that I really didn't expect to see. And so I was able to get in touch with a mutual friend and say, hey, watch this. And he was like, holy cow, this is great. And that's, of course, why we do this.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And here we are. Stephany.
I had just heard of it from your list. So I just watched it a couple days ago. Yeah, it's funny that you bring up the title, Witch in the Window. Like, yep, that was that.
Well, it paid off better than the sadness.
It definitely did.
Stephany, a lot of these were new to you, and you've been kind of just going off of the titles and descriptions. So I'm looking forward to chatting about this one. And Gert?
I was also aware of the title and the poster, and just like with Megan, it came out on physical media here also. I avoided the trailers and all that. And I like witches, so I saw it on your list. And I said, yep, let's do this. And the title also is a nice little touch of alliteration in there. And it had this indie vibe that attracted me somehow.
I feel like that's one of the Gert put together a care package of various VHS tapes, and I feel like one of your triple features is Witches. I like witches, which I'm like, that should be a T-shirt now. It's just like, I like witches.
You have a good memory, sir.
So anyway, this starts off with we have a son named Finn, who is the son of Simon and Beverly. And Simon and Beverly seem to be having some difficulties. They are probably doing some kind of separation at the time. And Finn and Simon are going to go off for a while Simon does kind of a fixer-upper on this house. And it's seen as a bonding time, but it's also an opportunity for Finn to get away from his mother, because you get the sense that she's really struggling in terms of how to keep him safe from the world, is kind of the impression I got, that, she's like, he's been banned from his computer, and she's worried about, this president and all the things that are going on in the world. And so Simon takes him on, and they go to Vermont to work on this house together. And while they're at the house, they start sensing the titular character of this witch who used to live there called Lydia. And I was telling Stephany backstage, like this movie was one that went where I thought it was going to go for about 2/3 of the way, and then does this nice little left turn where I'm like, oh, we're okay. I'm on board now. I'm curious to hear where you're going, because it felt very conventional leading up to this, and I was kind of like, okay, good old haunted house movie. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. It's kind of ghost in the window until that last 2/3. Then you're like going, okay.
It's the vibe that I had for a while, because it's kind of like, witches have been kind of like hip again. How do you call it? En vogue, with ever since The Witch. But you get these witches movies that are kind of like about perversions and links with the devil. Then you've got these witches movies that are more like hip and cool and teenage kind of thing. Just think about The Craft and Sabrina. And you got the old school ones that are all about witch hunting and all that thing from medieval ages. And this one manages to be none of all that. It feels more like a haunted house movie in some ways, which, the house in the movie happens to be owned by a witch, and you take it from there.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Scott. Like, it is more of a ghost movie than a witch movie, and there is kind of that haunting quality just in the title, and I think that's probably what attracted you, Stephany. It's like, there's kind of this kind of like, oh, well, what is that witch in the window doing, and how much is she?
Yeah, I definitely, like, just like Gert, I love witches, and so. Haunting movies, like I like haunting movies, but I feel like I can always predict stuff in haunting movies, because it's just, like, there's only so much you can do. So when I was watching this, I was like, wow, like, this is not about a witch at all. And like you said, it does take a turn that is more witchy like. But one thing that I noticed was that I didn't get much of a backstory in The Witch. I guess I expected, because I felt like it was a haunted house movie, I expected like this huge history to be told me about the house and the witch, and the little magic thing you have to do to get unhaunted, and like all these things. And it was just like, no, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but like her family died, and then she died there.
Yeah.
Like,
and her spirit remains. Yeah.
Right, and her spirit remains.
If I can comment on that, because that was my little problem with the beginning of the movie, but then I was with it. It's like, at first, also in the first 20 minutes or so, father takes his son to the house. They meet Simon, the fixer-upper guy, and then he just proceeds to tell the backstory of the witch, and it was like, you're going to tell us that now already, and that's it. But then, as the movie goes on, it's got some aces up its sleeve in terms of little tricks that you don't see coming. So that was clever in that sense, that it's not a conventional narrative either. It's kind of an unconventional film. It's a bit offbeat. It's a slow burner. Offbeat meaning that might also be off-putting to some people. But I like the fact that it does things different in a way you don't expect.
Yeah.
Within 70 minutes of running time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think that's interesting that you say it's offbeat and everything, because I think that's what I kind of liked about it. I was kind of taken aback by how it was doing. I'm laughing at the guy doing the entire backstory. That's such a New England thing. We don't want you living here. Yeah. Thank you for the beer. Let me tell you about the witch that died right in here. They didn't put that in. They didn't tell. That's not a disclosure thing. I guess they don't need to tell you. It's that kind of thing, which is just so perfect. You're never going to be a New Englander, my friend. You're from New York? Oh yeah, we want you here. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you'll get. But I love that there was no major backstory. That's the thing with ghost stories, and Dr. AC's heard me say this before. I always look at ghost stories like the most terrifying thing for the first 2/3. First 2 acts are great because it's all predator prey. And then once you find out what's got to be done, then it's small claims court of the supernatural. You're the third party that has to get brought in to take care of a problem that nobody wants to take a look at. And so I hate that whole, here we go. You make this ingredient, you take these bones and you burn them. And here it's not that at all. It's instead this thing where it's very much like the other really great witch one, Autopsy of Jane Doe, where it's you step right into a curse. You know, it's like at one point they're walking through the mud, right? And they're carrying this piece of wood, and he goes, just walk around the mud. And he's like, wait, it's everywhere. You know, I've stepped in the mud. I can't. And he falls over. And I was like, oh, and that's so indicative of this idea that there's this witch that's just in this house waiting, stuck in this house. And I don't know how much we can give in the way of spoilers.
Sure,
but,
I'll throw the spoiler banner up there.
Yeah. The idea that it's almost as if she's caught in her own curse inside of this place, and she needs to have someone come in and take her place. And I thought it was really good because I always defer to Aaron because he's an actor. I thought that there was interesting. I wouldn't say high level acting, but I thought it was very naturalistic, and I felt that it was something that I don't normally see with adults and their kids in movies, kind of talking to him because he's not a great dad. He's talking to him like he's an equal. There's a moment where it felt like this adventure, like when me and my dad used to pretend to go into a haunted house when we would play as when I was a little kid. You know, all of a sudden we're the Hardy Boys working together. And so there was that kind of feeling that they weren't father son as much as they were just kind of learning each other. And I thought that was a great thing to bring you into an unexpected thing of a witch suddenly sitting on a chair.
What I liked about this film is that it focuses on the father and son relationship, because what we nowadays, especially what we usually get when you talk about a divorced family, usually it's the mother is the main character with the kids, and they focus on their relationship. This film, in that sense, is kind of refreshing. That shows us like the dad is the protagonist, and the relationship with his son is what's being, dealt with the whole film. Yeah, and the film, and the mom is kind of like in the background somewhere in New York, but still the film doesn't forget her near the end. So it's kind of like refreshing to me to see that the story told from that perspective.
Well, and kind of what you were just talking about, Scott, with in terms of the acting, I agree. It's not great performance, but I also feel like part of it is the way that it's written. The script is also by Andy Mitton. And there are these lines that as an actor, sometimes you get lines that read amazing on the page, but you try to articulate it and you're like, okay, I'm going to use all my skills to make this sound natural, but it still sounds like a scripted line. And I feel like Alex Draper, who plays Simon, he's kind of saddled with a lot of those where it's like, it's this great line. It reads with such poetry, and you even hear it with poetry, but it never quite sounds natural. And I feel like that was one thing I was kind of like, I love this story. And I actually almost wish I was reading this story versus watching it played out for me, because I think all the actors do a fine job with what they have to work with, but that it does just feel like almost too on the nose literate to play as a natural story. And it's not melodramatic enough to play as a melodrama. So it kind of like just sits in that weird kind of uneasy place. It's really fascinating that this is something where the house is sick. And as he's continuing to restore the house and replace the wiring and the plumbing and the heating and things like that, the house gets stronger, and that's what brings our witch back, brings our ghost back. And it's like, the more you work on this, the more you are cursing yourself, the more you are forcing yourself to have to deal with this issue. It's like, I don't know that you want a witch in your house, much less a full power witch in your house.
Maybe also about the subtleties in the story. And perhaps Stephany, you picked up on it also. I mean, the horror aspect, it's like everything takes place in broad daylight. And it actually works most of the time.
Yeah.
For instance, also once the backstory of the witch is set up, she appears in many shots in the background. And even during a normal conversation when they're fixing the roof, she's there.
Yeah.
And the first time I think it was when the son leaves the bedroom and the camera pans, and you sit there in the background. And as of then, I was like glued to the screen, is like checking in every shot, like, you know, show yourself. Which what did you pick up on the
definitely. I connected it to that picture the boy has in his room of like, if you do, you know, if you're like looking far away but close but far, you'll see the picture, and the dad's like, I don't get it, but the kid's like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, and it's a great technique, right? Because then you're kind of scaring yourself. They don't even have to do it. Like, you're looking like, oh, is she gonna be there? Is she gonna be over there? And even if she isn't, you're still like on edge because you're like, when is this scary thing gonna pop up at me? Another couple fun moments that I had, because I love to be scared, right? I'm sure you all do. Were with the sound, where nothing visually scary came up, but all of a sudden it was like, ah! And it was like broad daylight, sunny field, but the sound of like the it just came in and it scared you. So those were some of the fun.
Also, in terms of scary scenes, I mean, the whole film is really subtle for most of the time. That made the few jump scares have more impact, and they actually worked for me. I mean, I didn't complain like, yeah, that's a cheap trick. No, it wasn't. Yeah. And two standout scenes were, well, okay, when they see her in the chair. It takes a while, but it happens. Yeah. And then the second scene, when he's supposed to put his son on the bus, and he shows up at the house.
My favorite scene.
And they have a conversation on the phone. I mean, you know it's coming, but it's so, there's not even a jump scare, but it's so uncomfortable and scary because he's sitting right next to him.
Yeah.
That works wonders for me.
The great jump on that is when you realize that the father's trying to keep everything together for the son who's on the phone, and the other one is just sitting there, kind of looking away and like knowing that. But there's the moment, which is, I'm trying to think of a movie that had that kind of thing in it. That's not Phantasm, but there's a moment where everybody just kind of stands still and all of a sudden runs off very quickly. And the kid follows, but as he's going around the corner, it's the woman again.
Yep.
And that creeped me out so much because it was just like this whole shape-shifting kind of thing coming at me. I saw this movie the first time. I didn't really make the connection of the sick house, the Mrs. Dallaride of Burnt Offerings. Right. I didn't get that feeling of it being sick, but also that he says at one point, this house's heart is bad. And he's got a bad heart. And I was like going, oh, geez, was he drawn to this, right? Is it like the sacrifice for sacrifice? Is he getting sicker as the house is getting better? And of course, that would be the way, what the handyman cuts the wires and everything. He realizes that she seems to be I thought that was so creepy too. He's having sleepwalking and he's getting closer a step every night. What happens when he gets on the porch? They never mention what is going to happen when he gets there. But that whole idea of him having to cut the wires in it because he realizes electricity or something. So the idea that you keep a haunted house untaken care of because the monster's in there or the curse is in there. The only way to keep that curse low is to keep the house ready to fall apart. And so as it's being fixed, it's actually like the curse is coming into play. I thought that was really smart, and it was so subtle. I didn't catch it the first time around.
Well, and isn't that interesting that like that's pretty much every haunted house movie is that the haunted house, if you just leave the haunted house alone, it doesn't do anything. It's only when people go into the haunted house that anything happens. Like if you just don't touch the haunted house, leave it alone, everything will be fine. But of course, people can't do that. They have to go in and, why is this house just neglected? We should really bring it back to life. And it's like, yeah, well, see what happens when you do.
Well, it's what you mentioned now, Aaron. Like normally, don't go in that house, just go away. There was a moment of that too in the film, and then it led to also for me a standout moment, as Stephany mentioned, standout moments there. At one point, after they saw the witch in the chair, I mean, he decides the son must go, and you think like, you both go, just leave it be.
Yeah.
Right.
But he stays, and then after it leads to a standout moment that I didn't see coming. When he goes back to the neighbor after a second encounter that really gets to him, is like, I need to get out of here.
Oh man, yeah,
Goes
yeah,
to
yeah.
the neighbor, and the neighbor says, I could have helped you before, if only you left the house. And that's like, boom, a little twist that I didn't see coming. And that's a standout. Then it got really scary for me.
Yeah, and I love that recalls kind of Fulci's The Beyond, where they just keep turning around and turning around. They cannot escape. It's Exterminating Angel all over again, where you're just like,
but
nope,
in
you're not getting out of here.
It's kind of like, I mean, the logic is out the window. In this film, it kind of makes it's part of the rules and how it goes with how the witch influences everybody who's close to it. When she gets stronger in a psychological manner, also. So it's.
Well, it's also like every kind of, dream movie where you keep having the wake up from the wake up from the wake up, and you're like, how deep do these layers go? And the answer is, we'll just keep doing this. The witch is like, we'll just keep doing this until you decide to actually confront me. And I thought that kind of like, circling to the end, that's where this movie went that I was not expecting at all. Like, it's almost like this kind of melancholy and kind of beauty to it. There's a real love attached to the end, because the husband is trying to connect with his wife by building her this dream house, or restoring this dream house. It's got, stables for her horses. And he's like, if I could do this one thing, it would show that I really cared, and that I was trying, and that I'm sorry I was absent, but I'm trying to be here now. And, in so doing, he's there always. He's literally never going to leave them.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever lost someone in your family that was close to you, it really hit at that moment when he's holding the walls. In the beginning, they're touching the walls, listening to the walls, and it's something foreign. And in the end, it's reassuring. He's like, "Good night, Dad." That really hit me. I was like, shit, I didn't expect this movie to hit me in that fashion. I love the line where he says he has died. They're in the house. And they can't believe how good they feel. So I'm one of those people who has a house that I feel that way about. Like, I'm like, wow, this house just feels. And we talk about there might be a ghost here. Every so often you see something off the side of your eye and stuff. My dogs do weird things at certain points. But there's always that thing of everybody feels good when they come in this house. It's a welcoming house. And I love the idea that you could do that. And I think the mother at that point, or the son says, he said, you were more likely to get hit by an asteroid. And she goes, well, they have to land somewhere, which I thought was a really interesting line to put in that movie. And it's interesting because you have this warmth at the end, but I love the introduction to the witch. It's so happening matter-of-factly. Two different sources of action are happening. He's going to get this raincoat upstairs and all this stuff, and Dad's preoccupied, and you're in there, and it doesn't go. You're used to seeing the kid go upstairs, and then he looks and he sees something, and then we have a cut. Instead, he's like saying off to the side, Dad, and it could be anything, but here's the main action. The main action is happening. We have to go upstairs. So there's this nervousness that we have just going up the stairs, and it's a long time. It's a good minute until from the moment that we say there's a witch upstairs sitting there till we see her face, just slowly walking. They're having this moment. And I love when they run out of the house. It's another domestic weirdness, right? You just had this scary moment, and then they're sitting silently eating pizza. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? But they're eating. You still got to eat. I'm scared shitless, but we still got to eat.
That scene after the really scary encounter, that scene when they cut to the diner, it's all drenched in warm, like October sunny colors in the interior, and they're just sitting there like motionless. And the waitress comes with the pizza. Is like, "Yep, that just happened."
Yeah, that's another very realistic piece because we've all been through something traumatic or something crazy or a death, and there's that moment of just going on. Great, we just had this amazing, scary fucking thing happen. I'm lucky
Yep.
to be alive. Whatever. I still got to eat,
Yeah.
and you just, what do? You sit around at the table going, this no longer makes sense. We're sitting here in a domestic moment, but we did all see the three-headed monster, right?
Right,
Okay,
right.
great. Pass the ketchup.
And then they have to go back to the house. Like they have to go back to the house. There isn't a choice for him. And I feel like, I mean, that's something that certainly the economy of it, they require, like, it's like, no, I can't walk away from this. And that sense of, well, I'm a problem solver. That's literally what I came here to do, was fix the things that need to be fixed. And so he's like, I'll just be there and I'll negotiate it and I won't get in her way and it'll be fine.
I've been in houses where people don't want me to be before. Yeah.
I had a little bit of difficulties buying that, but
Sure.
I just took it like, okay, by now he's already a bit under the influence, probably.
I like the practicality of it, where he's just like, this is what I do, is I go in and I fix things that are broken. One thing I read about this, I didn't see it because I can't do it either, like Simon, but looking at the magic picture, apparently it says Finn at first.
Yeah.
And then later it says Lydia.
Yeah.
And I was like, I did not see that, but I love knowing that that's in there for those who can see ghosts,
I actually squinted my eyes in that
I
scene
tried
see
to.
if I could do it.
Well-
and then I rewatched it again going, those fuckers did something here. That didn't just happen. So of course they did. They slowly faded in a little bit like a superimposition.
If you rewind it, you can see that they digitally messed with it, because it does move. I mean, it does change a bit.
Does anybody know what the budget was for this? I tried to find that because it looked like something that was shot for film festivals. It seems so. We talked about economy, and I was like going, yeah, there's so many choices that are made in this to make sure that they're in that location, and there's only a few actors. It really felt economical in that way, and so I love seeing a low budget film go beyond its normal expectations and really kind of elevate things. And I thought that this one did.
Yeah, I don't know what the budget is, but I can only assume that was of a lower tier, simply because of the people. Like, we don't have any names in the cast. It seems to be very much kind of local talent. But again, I thought everybody did a decent job. I really like our witch playing Lydia, Carol Stanzioni. Because I wasn't sure if it was male or female, I was kind of like, what an interesting look she has.
She's definitely, she brings a dark presence to the film for sure. And well, to kind of like wrap up what I felt after watching it, the curse thing of the whole house and the witch, the whole film in the end ends on a very gentle note. And for me, it was kind of like part of the narrative that you don't expect. This expression that, a curse can be a blessing or turned into a blessing.
Right.
That's at the end the feeling I was left with. And not many scary movies actually pull that off. And
that's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
For me, so.
Yeah, this family that was broken is now healed, but through at a cost, for sure.
Yeah.
It's still disquieting, I would say, but
yeah, I don't think anybody wishes that, here's the only way we can be together is if you're dead.
I like that you mentioned Lydia as well, the actress, because there's a softness to the other characters. Like, they're not the father isn't very masculine. Even the handyman, there's like a roundness to them, but she's angular. Her facial features, her height, she's really tall compared to everybody else in the thing. And so she really felt like this splinter that was causing all of the infection around. So it's really kind of cool. I thought that she was really nice. And I like what you had to say, Gert, about this being a blessing, the blessing within the curse. It was the unexpected turn. Like the weird shot was Lydia in New York. Like, there she is.
Yeah, right. I was like,
Totally
okay,
out
she's
of place, but I get it.
Yeah.
She's free.
Yeah.
yeah, she's free, but she's not nice. Darn it, she's
Yeah.
still a witch.
Absolutely not. What's she gonna pull off in New York, man?
She's gonna be in New York. She's gonna take over Trump Tower. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Cool. All right. Any final thoughts, Stephany?
I think I appreciate this film more after this conversation.
Okay.
But definitely I was like, I'm not sure I really got that.
Well, thanks everybody. This was a great conversation. I agree. Again, this is Scare-A-Thon 2023, benefiting the Women's Reproductive Rights Assistance Project. The link to donate is below in the description for this video. So please make a contribution. This is a cause that's very important to myself and my guests. And until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep sharing the scare.